So welcome to the second part of our side event related to water. Today is the IGWCO and GEO Water Activities session. So IGWCO, for your information, means the Integrated Global Water Cycle Observation. And it's a community of practice of GEO, bringing all the water people together. Someone can close the door, please, if it's possible. Thank you very much. So we will start with a few presentations, about 7 minutes each. And then we will have a discussion about the presentations that have been made. And after that, we will have a general discussion of the interaction among GEO Water Initiative, and GEOGLOWS. So I think I will already call the first presenter. If you can just introduce yourself before doing the presentation, if it's fine for you. Okay. Yeah? Okay, so Rick Lawford will present the IGWCO and GEOGLOWS and the status of the GEOS water strategy. Here we are.
Thank you, Vanessa. As indicated, this is just a very quick review of what the community of practice has done during the last year. My name is Rick Lawford. I've been associated with this community of practice since its inception. The mission basically of the community of practice is that we undertake or contribute to GEO studies involving innovative approaches to data collection and the application of Earth observations to decision making in water science. And we do this by expanding the range of data products and services available through GEO to water managers, providing advice on synergies amongst the water activities within GEO, undertaking exploratory studies to identify gaps or new applications, and then to track the implementation of the GEOS water strategy. Basically, our remit is global. We look at activities in all parts of the world, although we've had a focus on the Americas, Europe, Africa, and Southeast Asia. We've undertaken and contributed to studies involving, this is a bit repetitive actually, involving data collection, data services, and applications of Earth observations to decision making. It's basically a flat organization with 150 participants actually. A lot of activities are done via email or through teleconference calls, and we do have a chair, and we receive administrative support from the GEO secretary, and we're very grateful to Vanessa for being that person who helps with those aspects. What we've done in the last year or so is that we've supported the implementation of GEOGLOWS and the movement of some of the GEO water activities into the GEOGLOWS program. We've contributed to the completion of a CEOS study on synergies in water cycle observations. We've completed a revision to a BAMS article that's basically indicating how we're progressing with the implementation of the GEOS water strategy. And just to give you some background on how we're doing on implementing the water strategy, CEOS has undertaken 2 major studies now in response to the report, and they're exploring mechanisms for coordinating aspects of the strategy's implementation at this point in time, and GEOGLOWS is one of them. GTNH has made some adjustments to improve the quality control of its data centers, which was one of the issues raised in the report. And the FAO Aquastat archive is now part of their list of centers. But there are some changes in the GTNH structure, that stands for the Global Terrestrial Network in Hydrology, and we're not sure what the implications of those changes are, because it may mean that the GTNH functions in a different way in the future. In terms of the commitments to implement the water strategy, GEOGLOWS is taking a very appropriate role in that, looking at user needs assessments, water use, essential water variables, capacity building, promotion of open and free access to data, and we'll see as time progresses what other ones are included in that. In the coming year, we hope to have another annual meeting, which is something we've tried to do each year, where we bring together those who can participate. And based on the meeting in Tuscaloosa, which was held back in May, We looked at the potential for developing applications related to cities and water, and Balazs Fiketi was going to follow up with that in a little bit of a concept note or concept study. We've had a comprehensive water assessments being proposed through the Sustainable Water Future Program, which we're tracking. We've had on the books to do something on climate and extremes and resilience now, which is part of the discussion. And then yesterday, an issue came up on the role of indices and accountability in engaging stakeholders. And we think that this might be an appropriate activity for IGWCO to look at as well. Links to other SBAs and initiatives. We continue to see seek links between the water initiatives and other societal benefit areas, such as food, energy, ecosystems, disasters, and so forth, and to link with groups outside, such as the Sustainable Water Future Program. And we're working closely with GEOGLOWS in their implementation. Contributions to SDGs. We continue to identify and where appropriate develop linkages between space agency capabilities, in situ programs, and the SDGs. And finally, we're looking to foster the development of a new focus for our analytical capabilities. Some of the raison d'etre for having the community of practice have dissipated a little bit, and so we are now looking maybe to be a more externally oriented group to see where the connections are between GEO water activities and things outside of GEO. Also, there are changes which are on the horizon in terms of GEO coordination of water, and we want to make sure that we can contribute to whatever gaps might result from that within the GEO Secretariat. Integrating new observational capabilities and practices into data streams and data products for users is another area that we hope to focus on, but it's a challenge. So thank you very much, and we'll come back for questions, I guess, later on.
Thank you, Rick. I just want to add something from your presentation. From a GEO Secretariat perspective, we have different community of practice, but the water community of practice, the IGWCO, is the stronger and the most active one, and it's changed a lot. So I would like just to remind people in the room that a community of practice sounds maybe something basic, but it's really important just to collaborate together, and it's make a huge difference, at least for the GEO Secretariat, because it's really helped to connect all different groups. So thank you to Rick for that. The next speaker is Will Posey, and he will present the GDIS, the Global Drought Information System, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You can do from here.
Okay, thank you. And here. To advance.
You can use either this.
Okay, thanks.
This.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Will Posey. I used to work with the National Center for Atmospheric Research back in the early 1980s, and I also worked with the NASA WaterNet project, where I met Rick and Charlie Vorse-Marty and several other people. Rick and I have been working with IGWCO since then. The Global Drought Information System is a project that was started in the aftermath of an article that I wrote for the Bulletin of the American Meteorological Society. Basically, we were recognized by the World Climate Research Program as providing expertise in the drought area in terms of the grand challenge of extremes. This was a result of an international meeting that we had with several hundred people that was held initially in Frascati in Italy, outside of Rome, and the second meeting that we held was in Pasadena. As a result of the first meeting, NOAA, predominantly the National Integrated Drought Information System, agreed to house the portal for GEDIS, the Global Drought Information System. And okay, without any further ado, I should perhaps start by saying that this is not I did not draft this as an EGU style presentation. It's basically geared for providing some talking points in a discussion upcoming, and that's the reason why the slide presentation is fairly minimalistic. But I do want to make a couple of quick observations here. First is that drought is a problem. I mean, I think everybody in the U.S. acknowledges that now, but droughts can be synchronized between the Western Hemisphere and the Eastern Hemisphere. Also, the largest droughts are produced by global atmospheric and oceanic circulation factors. So drought is actually a global problem. And for example, as you can see, 95% of the droughts in Eastern Australia, actually it's more than just Eastern Australia, occur during El Nino episodes. Now, as I say there, that does not mean that every time there's an El Nino, there's a drought in Australia. That is not necessarily true. Sahel droughts coincide with transients in sea surface temperature in the tropical South Atlantic Ocean. There's a correlation between Mediterranean droughts and the North Atlantic Oscillation, NAO, and the Russian droughts occur as a result of the Western Russian East Atlantic pattern. So just that points out and brings home. Obviously, at the same time, the evidence of CMIP5 indicates that droughts increase during global warming situations. Okay, here's an example of what the Global Drought Information System actually looks like. This is actually what is available when you go to the NIDIS portal, which is Droughtgov, and then look at the Global tab on there, which houses the Global Drought Information System. Okay, in addition to the global picture, we have drought observatories for each continent, and the advantage of that is that you can basically present the drought information in higher resolution, higher spatial resolution. Okay, I'm going to maybe just a quick add here. Drought cannot, the identification of drought cannot be automated. Basically, the identification of drought requires a team of experts, different disciplines to actually look at. What we try to do at the global level is adopt a pattern that's being used by the European Drought Observatory, which is used precipitation anomalies as a first drought indicator, followed by soil moisture anomalies as a second drought indicator, and then third by vegetation in terms of vegetation productivity anomalies as the third indicator. So as you can see, what's happening is first the incoming precipitation is deficient, then that results in depleting soil moisture, and then finally in vegetation water stress. Okay, now, as just said, and now I'm about to end the drought discussion and start talking about the Water Sustainable Development Goals. The link between drought and the Water Sustainable Development Goal is that any loss of water, incoming water, basically impacts the ability to meet water needs. And obviously, drought vulnerability is a situation where you look at the uses of water and see how, say, for example, drought basically impacts the ability to provide water for those usages. Okay, so now the actual Water Sustainable Development Goal target 6.4 is by 2030 substantially increase the water use efficiency across all sectors and ensure sustainable withdrawals and supply of fresh water to address water scarcity and substantially reduce the number of people suffering from water scarcity. Okay, the actual indicator for 6.4 is water stress, i.e. the freshwater withdrawals as a proportion of available water resources, i.e. What is withdrawals in terms of withdrawals being in the numerator and water available being the denominator. Okay, now with the two activities which involve the greatest water withdrawal are agriculture and energy power production as the energy water nexus and food nexus. Okay. Now, the activity involving the largest water consumption, okay, this is withdrawal, this is consumption. What I'm doing now is I'm raising a not quite obvious point that there is a difference between water withdrawal and water consumption. Okay, agriculture is definitely the largest consumer of water. However, if you look at the energy sector, the actual, in the case of the US, the actual water consumed in the energy sector is about 3%. And then if you look at the other industrial sectors, like paper and pulp, timber processing, and petrochemical operations and activities, basically they also have an equal amount of, say, 3% water consumption. These are national figures. If you look at regional figures, like, for example, the Southwest, you can see that obviously in a situation such as that, the provision of water, cooling water for power plants is a major problem, okay? And the consumption of water there as well. Okay, now, what can the group of Earth observations do to help implement, okay, thank you, the Water Sustainable Development Goal? Okay, in the case of agriculture, develop a satellite constellation to monitor agricultural crop types and crop areas. 2, monitor water consumption over these agricultural areas via evapotranspiration monitoring. Energy, what can be done in the case of the energy sector? Identify water consumption and withdrawal per plant type, whether in the case of fossil fuel plants, whether it be subcritical plants, whether they be natural gas combined cycle plants, you know, what have you. So this is one way you can identify, say, for example, what the individual water use per plant is, and then combine that with forecasts in terms of forecast of upcoming and existing power plant capability globally across the world. Okay, I'm almost finished. I'm going to quickly go over, because this is very useful from a Earth observation point of view. In terms of the agricultural satellite constellation, basically what you have to do to design an agricultural monitoring system, you have to have a revisit frequency which is high enough to capture multiple cloud-free images during each growing season. Okay, GEOGLAM tries to do this with Landsat Sentinel-2 and the India Resource satellite. However, their resolution is 30 meters, which is not high enough to actually resolve subsistence plots in sub-Saharan Africa, in India, Indonesia, and several other areas. Okay, and that is, I'm sorry, that basically is it. I've run out of time. I'm just trying to prime the pump here for discussing some of these issues if we have a subsequent discussion dealing with the Water Sustainable Development Goals. This is a major thrust area for GEO. It's really important for us to be, the GEO, people that participate with GEO, to be able to have the tools and have the capabilities to provide the ability to actually prepare for dealing and grappling with issues of water sustainability in the future. Okay, with that, then, thank you, Vanessa.
Thank you very much, Will. Sorry for the time. We have only 7 minutes. So if you have any question about drought, please just keep in mind, because then, as I said, we have a discussion about the presentation, but I think we just do the presentation first and then we ask questions. So just keep in mind your question. Now we are going to speak about another topic, the cold region, with Yu Bao Q. If you can just come here.
Thank you. I have an update of the presentation.
Perfect.
First slides. Thank you. Okay. Good. Very fast. Thank you. Thank you, Vanessa, and also the chairman. So my presentation title is about GEO Cold Region initiatives. So this is one of them. You know, I guess a core component of this is really relevant to the water part, especially for the global crisis watching. I think lots of crisis component from those activities. So at least as the design, the first page, at least some of the activities. I can very quickly to show. So we work with EasyMode. Actually, you know, EasyMode, they have a database and also some activities linked with the high mountain Asia or Himalaya place. I think the cryosphere is one of the core component of this one. And also China initiated a digital back-end load science program, and I co-chair one of the high MAC. It's high mountain and the cold region activities, and mainly focus on the cryosphere. And the polar data catalog is one of the Canada's activities about the Arctic. This is the intelligence from EU Horizon 2020, I think. Yeah, it's EU Horizon 2020, and I think this is focused on the integration Arctic observation systems. And Interact is for the infrastructure part of the EU PolarNet cluster, one of the infrastructures, and the PICS also activities focused on that. They're not only in the cryosphere part, but I think they have lots of link with the cryosphere and also the ecosystem. And still, yeah, this is the logo. I'm sorry, I need to put this one here. And the global cryosphere is the in-situ measurement component of the WMO global cryosphere watch. And also ESA, they have the space segment. And the YOP is one of the WMO movement, and SEON is a networking. It's more like very similar to the GEOS. So I think this is also we have a really strong link with the SEON, because one of our co-lead is from SEON, the Arctic Data Committee, and he is now working on the community portal and the link with SEON and also the Geo Code Region portal, and Peter also from the NSIDC. And this is the AMAP. I think they have some activities from the CAF. So this is the overall of the geocode region. Looks like it's quite broad activities. So I will show you very quickly about how to. Oh yes, this one. This is some activities that when I was in geosectorial, I worked with them to link them together and put all those activities. Put all those location of those programs. I also put the Tibet, the South Pole environment. Now they changed the South Pole environment to be the Pan South Pole environment program, and I think they will focus across those areas and to focus more on the in-situ measurement for that one. And also the space segment is from my home institute. I think most of the work from that. So this is a perspective from the northern hemisphere on top of the Arctic, and we can see it's not far away from the the cold regions. They link together very very close, especially the Arctic part. And why we need the cold region? I think this is a very long time ago we defined this sentence. It's more than 100 countries around the world and affected by those cryosphere elements. That to say, the water become, the phase changing of the water and influence different of environment. So this is why we need to do that one. And also some of the place really sensitive to the global warming or global change or environment change. I think it's really ecological, environmentally sensitive area. So the cold region. We keep this is like a slogan, the cold region of our planet influence our entire the world science, and this is one of the concepts of the activities linked with the different region. For example, Arctic is the most popular area for the scientists, I think, and also Antarctic still is very active. But the mountain area looks not so many activities, but I think. Actually, the mountain area is not so rich sometimes, I think. So, but when we look at that, the water part is still not really, full addressed over that. Okay, thank you very much. So I will go fast. So this is one of the benefit area and then link the social benefit area. And this is why, the geocode region, we have our own logo and it link through water link with others. So this is one of that, and this is one of the dimension analysis of the different programs. They have their own emphasis. So cryosphere is one of them, and this is the 2 years ago. Yeah, it's not 2 years ago. It's 3 years ago. We have a statement and and also conclusion from that. So this is I will show very quickly of that. GeoCold region, the aim, what is the aim is to provide information service for that. And we announced some statement in the Arctic Observations Summit in Alaska. And also, okay, this is, we link with the working plan and also the water social benefit area. And this is the mission of us on a global scale. We provide information service and we work on that. And objectives, this is focus on the observation and promoting and advocating data sharing, build community product and service, strengthening commercial building and partnership. So this is the structure of our implementation plan. We have 6 tasks, and we have a hierarchy structure to do the work. So this is the contributors and also the leads, countries and organizations, and still some program and projects. Okay, and this is last year in the primary Russia, we enhanced or strengthened the development of the Russia, but we still work on that now. And we have discussed on that, we identified 3 priorities. One of the community portal development and another essential valuable for cold region. I think we still need work with the biodiversity and climate and also the water essential valuables, and the last one is the more technical things. So this is some project. Okay, this is the Chinese climate science investor one, almost it's 120 million RMB focus on the 3 poles, and this is the Intalos. It's 15 million euro on the integration observation system of the Arctic region, and this is the one of the project from Russia or something. Yes, we have some transaction, the Earth reports and the MAC transaction of that one, and we went together. So this is some idea. I'm not sure they really get the funding until now, but yes, last year we discussed on that. And this is the IEEE. They started an IEEE ad hoc committee on the North Pole and the South Pole to focus on the communication, transportation, and environmental observation, and also the technical education capacity building and outreach. So this is why we need link together, and they focus on the in-situ management and the resource remote sensors development, and so lots of activities link with us. And then this new, okay, thank you. So the last maybe. So this is the ad hoc committee, and we have a meeting in the Egas, Texas. So this is the last one. And also, I will show you some effects from SEA, and it's very interesting that we will develop the Arctic data ecosystem like this way. The Bose pole, and also we link with the GEO. I think the global scale initiative will include GEO activities here. So this is what I would like to, convey to all of you. Thank you very much. I'm sorry, I use two more or one more minutes.
No problem. Thank you, Yubao. Sorry to stress you again. I lost what I wanted to say. So I think GeoCold region also focused on mountain region, if I'm not wrong. I mean, at least you are just you're also interested to see what's going on there. And just after this session, there will be a GeoNome session, so the Geo Global Mountain Observation. I don't remember exactly.
GeoNome, I think.
Yeah, GeoNome, but I was trying to find the entire sentence. But anyway, so it's also interesting to stay because, as you may know, it's a sensitive area and it's a cross-cutting area. We just touch everything like water, biodiversity, etc. Okay, so the next speaker is Rick or Charles? I'm not sure now. It was Charles or Rick.
Charles, I don't think is coming.
Okay, so Rick Lawford about the Earth observation and the water energy food nexus.
Okay.
I'll just open your presentation. Yeah.
Okay, so this is an update on a community activity. It's not an initiative, but it's sort of a lower class of activities within the Geosecretariat or nomenclature. It's the results basically of a Belmont Forum project that has close ties to GEO because it was involved in identifying information systems and their applications in the water, energy, food nexus in an attempt to improve the sustainability of the nexus. So the objectives are to promote the use of Earth observations within the WEF nexus and its sectors, to use data as a basis for advancing the joint co-management of the water, energy, food nexus. And to do this, we are articulating the requirements of the WEF nexus community for Earth observations and information systems and documenting them in a report. And we're relating the monitoring needs of the WEF nexus to appropriate elements of the SDG and GEOGLOWS agendas. We had 4 regional workshops. They've all been completed now, and we're synthesizing and analyzing the results. The Sustainable Water Future Program provided oversight for the project. The project co-leads, which were Claudia Paul-Westall and myself, worked with regional logistical and scientific committees to organize these regional workshops. There was one held here in Washington, there was another one in Germany, another one in Japan, and then a final one in South Africa. And all of those workshop reports are documented and on the Sustainable Water Future program website. So the achievements were that we've got a draft synthesis report now based on all of these regional workshops, and we're currently distilling the recommendations as they relate to Earth observations and information platforms. The workshops also gathered information on how improved governance might facilitate the water, energy, food nexus. We've completed a matrix assessing the relationships between the targets in the 3 SDGs, food, water, and energy, and we have a draft discussion paper looking at how the WEF nexus and the SDGs can relate. And we have a proposed collection of papers now that's been accepted by Frontiers Environmental Sciences, and we've got 22 authors who've agreed to submit abstracts and manuscripts to that special collection. Some of the ideas that came out and issues that came up during the workshops were that we need a rigorous definition of what the WEF nexus is if we're going to start designing monitoring programs. We need simple indicators to have a means of tracking the implementation of the water, energy, food nexus at the national level. We need regional information platforms because there's a lot of diversity across the world in terms of how this water, energy, food nexus manifests itself. Some countries are rich in energy resources, some have good agricultural capabilities, some have good water resources, a few have all 3, and some have none. So how do you meet the needs of all those groups? Well, it's hard to escape regionalizing. Watersheds, basins, and areas are needed for case studies. So we're looking to launch some case studies, and we recognize that citizen science and the expansion of the data that we make use of is very important from several respects in order to address this water, energy, food nexus. And finally, we need research to link Earth observations and analysis systems to the understanding of economics and governance issues. Just on the issue of the definition of the water, energy, food nexus, at present we see water and energy and food security as 3 separate items, and normally in a government they're managed in 3 separate ministries, and basically they're the silos, and one will not communicate with the other. One will set policies that is opposed to or conflicting with the other one, and with the nexus approach, the idea would be to bring these 3 sectors together so that they could be co-managed, and some integrated information system could facilitate that. But in bringing them together, the issue is not simple. If you want to start quantifying it, this is a rather simple approach where, compared to what it could be, where we would need approximately 60 variables to be monitored in order to address the analytical equations associated with that figure. So in looking forward into the future, we have a special WEF session coming up at the Fall AGU meeting in New Orleans. We're planning to submit the report of this study to GEO, to the Belmont Forum on Future Earth in 2018. We want to have a peer-reviewed paper on the connections between monitoring the WEF nexus and the SDGs. And we would like to next year launch a project, a pilot project, if funding is available. In terms of connections, we would like to promote more integration between water, agricultural, and energy SBAs within GEO, as well as biodiversity and health SBAs. We'd also like to enhance the GEOGLOWS WEF activities, and perhaps this community activity might migrate into GEOGLOWS in the not too distant future. Contributions to SDGs, we want to explore the synergies between monitoring the WEF nexus and the water, energy, and food SDGs. That's being done to some extent, but we'd like to make that a little more real. And we need to try to work harder at getting funding to support a pilot project to demonstrate the benefits of using integrated information platforms and an integrated management approach to the water, energy, food nexus. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rick. We are a bit late on the program. It's not a problem. But so we have a change on the program. Rosa Labaster came a bit late yesterday and couldn't do her presentation. So we will just add a presentation now to allow Rose to do her presentation that she missed yesterday. And she will talk about the socio-economic issue of the water crisis and policy linkage. And I think it's welcome because related to the last presentation of Rick, everything is linked to policy, and it's also important to have a social interest in this. Thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa, and thank you for giving me the slot to present this. I just want to point before I begin that this is going to be a wish list because socioeconomic aspects are going to be cross-cutting aspects of GEO initiatives. They should be because we need to base what we're doing on demand in terms of the applications we're coming up with, the response that we're giving. It's going to be utilized by governments. It's going to benefit communities. It's looking at sustainability of the environment and also sustainability of how we utilize the resources that we are generating as GEO and as GEOGLOWS. So I'm going to talk about two things. Yesterday there were questions about the private sector, and this is not a discussion that is beginning now within GEO. There have been lots of effort and discussions before. In November 2012, there was a paper to the GEO, the plenary, on engaging private sector in implementing GEOs. So that discussion goes back as far as 2012. Again, in July 2013, there was a paper to the GEO ExCom also providing an update on how GEO will be engaging with private sector. In 2014 as well, the GEO Ministerial Council confirmed the objective to work with the private sector, and there was an article in the declaration asking GEO to broaden and strengthen, among other things, among other entities, the private sector engagement. Then in 2014, the European Association of Remote Sensing Companies prepared a reflection paper on GEO and the private sector. So as you can see, there are lots of effort already and discussions around this issue because of the need to engage with private sector, because already we are engaging with private sector, but there has to be a framework on how we do this. So in much more recently, and with respect to GEOGLOWS work, we had some discussions in May in Tuscaloosa when we had the kickoff of the GEOGLOWS initiative, and it was agreed that we should prepare a framework for GEOGLOWS engagement with private sector. So this is not going to start from scratch. I mean, this is a discussion within GEO. But when we look at the SDGs as well, this is a discussion that is embedded within the SDG framework. The private sector has been given a platform to engage, but do we have the framework for the SDG engaging private sector? Lots of government institutions are, of course, reaching out to private sector to engage. And we need to, of course, governments need to build vibrant, systematic partnerships with the private sector because it's important, because they contribute the finance, technology, the skills, the scalability, and the innovations around how to do the monitoring and how to generate, analyze, and share data. But how will this be looking like? So what we want to do with GEOGLOWS is then to establish this framework, of course, based on the numerous numbers of guiding principles that already exist. The UN has guiding principles, OECD principles are there, the GEO Water Mandate has staff, SDG Compass. So we're going to start with taking stock of what exists and how do we then identify the key ingredients of what we would need, because it is a sensitive discussion as well, because we have private-public partnerships already going back as far back as the World Bank can tell us. But we know also that governments or managers are not going to do some of the accelerating service delivery and monitoring without private sector engagement. So it is sensitive in the sense that there are already frameworks within the countries that are in place. There are policies around this issue, and we need to start from what exists, and we need to start within GEO from what we have. So we're going to have this as a research sort of basis, looking at what this underlying guidance, principles, and implications on the sphere of influence of private sector. When we look at the Earth observation data and the services and products we need, we may have to engage outside of our network to have contribution from private sector as well. So this is what is going to happen, and we've given ourselves maybe 6 months to have this draft in the first quarter of 2018. Of course, it will require time and technical expertise to make this draft, which has to be peer-reviewed and then probably be put in use. Just to point out a few things, I've already indicated that we have a potential risk. The private sector within the SDG framework may go in as business as usual, but we know there are socio-economic environmental impact that could arise if this is not undertaken properly. So what we want to ensure is that we align the business agenda with the societal aims, and this is where the social aspect come in, that we are not just looking at commercial benefits in using the EO data, but also looking at the public. You know, this is in the interest of the public, and also there are other things that could be potentially a risk to a reputational risk if there are changes of interest or policies within the entities we are going to engage with. Then it is important to establish, now moving to the second wish list thing, that for us to deal with socio-economic elements and be able to link with policy, we need to establish the baseline. And we need to establish a mapping of the human settlements who are going to be beneficiaries of this. And also we need to have, to see how the Earth observation can actually be used to reveal these environmental and social vulnerabilities that exist within the areas that we work. So this concept that has been developed aims to characterize, provide a methodology for environmental characterization, in this case water resources, using EO. And the target beneficiaries as a pilot would be the communities in Meta in Colombia. Of course, we know that indigenous communities are usually vulnerable and marginalized, and even as we generate the data, we need to be very specific on what is happening, what is the land use mapping, what is the available resource that these communities draw from, what is the quality of the water based on what is happening within the sector. Rick has just shown us the nexus between different sectors, and we know that water used by governments goes to different has different licensing, has different impacts. If we look at agriculture, it's not just taking water, quantities of water, but it's impacting on qualities of water. Are we having these considerations when we look at the water resource management? So this project will establish the baseline, really producing information that will be able to enable the shaping of the legal policy framework for these indigenous communities. So there are different types of mapping there, mapping what exists in terms of policies, the policy legal framework, mapping the land use, mapping the water resources, and of course, in terms of consultations, you'll have to bear with me, Vanessa, for 1 minute. This project will contribute to a number of SDGs because it captures a lot of different aspects of development. At the same time, in terms of partnership, of course, we're talking about human settlements, we're talking about catchments, basins, we're talking about land. So the project is going to engage with government partners, as you can see there, with the communities, and the implementation. At the moment, this concept is being advanced by this entity within Colombia that deals with environmental law that has been supporting this community. And we want to see how the EO can be able to support this. The cross-cutting aspects, of course, then we'll see the engagement of GEOGLOWS, GeoWetlands, GeoBond, and probably others, because the scope is big to establish this baseline. So I'll stop there. And we can have some further discussions on this during the rest of the week. But this will need resources because it's a concept and a wish to have this piloting. And of course, we're then asking for partnerships for those partners that have this expertise and resources to advance this. Thank you very much. And sorry for
Okay. Thank you, Rose. The next is again Rick, and he will present the planned SWFP Compass program. So if you want to join me. And I see that all the speakers are looking at this and don't talk to the microphone, so please use this one.
Okay. We had hoped that in this session we'd have a few sort of outreach type presentations, and this is one that I was hoping Charles Forrest-Marty would be here to give, but he's unfortunately unable to attend. So I'll try and fill in to talk about COMPAS, which stands for Comprehensive Assessment of Water Resources, an initiative that's being developed through the Water Future activity. And it has a mission of providing comprehensive assessments of the global water resources to aid in planning and management of those resources on multiple scales. And the goals are to develop a prototype assessment system and to use it to produce a suite of potential products, and then to operationalize the system and begin producing routine assessments. The elements of it would be a state-of-the-art digital toolbox that details and evaluates and reports on existing and emerging water resource challenges, a comprehensive assessment system that would have models and be capable of developing scenarios, and also a capability to produce indicators and indices that merge the latest satellite data with model outputs. In terms of the actual functioning of this mechanism, or system if you like, a better word, there would be in the cloud some sort of database which would take in all water data that we could acquire, satellite data, global model outputs, citizen data, big data, in situ data. It would have a translator that would put the data into suitable formats and into suitable time sequences so that it could then be processed by a series of models, and outputs would be generated that would deal with the various primary outputs that COMPAS is going to produce, including SDG metrics, including a Dow Jones of water, if you like, a water stress migration function, as well as other types of outputs. This is actually the product suite. There's the Dow Jones of water, which is, if you know Charles, he's been talking about this for a couple of years now. It'd be 6-month water outlooks, an annual state of the resource report card on whatever basis one wanted to assess it on, whether it be on a watershed basis or on a national basis. Some report cards, if you like, for SDG 6, but from the point of view of this water assessment function, not according to the SDG reporting. There would be some medium-term water trends based on projections of water use. And if this became a very successful endeavor, there's the thought that some major companies that are interested in water might want to have some sort of a business intelligence report developed or a planning report and use this system to do so. This, of course, would require a lot of interpretation services, and it's thought that once the system is functional, that it would engage all of the working groups within the Sustainable Water Future Program, which are listed here. And in fact, we heard from the Freshwater Biodiversity Group from Ian Erson yesterday. But there are a number of other groups as well that provide perspectives on water that could be informed by this product suite, and in turn they could provide interpretive services for the community. The status is that it's a concept at this stage, and an implementation plan is being developed. It would have a global focus, but the first test probably would take place in Australia. The project office for the Sustainable Water Future Program happens to be in Australia. The Bureau of Meteorology in Australia has been indicating a lot of interest in this initiative, as have several other groups in Australia, such as CSIRO. The governance would be that the Sustainable Water Future Program would manage a distributed capability for undertaking the assessments, although there'd have to be some core center which would actually do the processing. And the products then would be distributed on a global and sectoral basis, with the working groups taking a fairly large role. There have been several workshops on this, and a conceptual plan and a marketing document have been developed, and meetings continue to be held with potential funders and contributors. I guess that's a good thing, because there's enough money to keep the process going to hold those meetings. In 2018, we hope to have a system design and implementation plan that would be available for presentation at the World Water Forum in Brazil in March, and we hope to have a prototype assessment system developed and tested by the end of 2018. General plans are to continue to seek partners and funders for the system, and to define a pilot project where global products would be prepared and validated against regional products. The assessments will have to link with food, energy, ecosystems, biodiversity, health, among others, and they would basically match the structure of the working groups within the Sustainable Water Future Program. The information from this system could contribute to SDG 6.4 directly, and other targets such as 6.6. And some of the challenges, there's going to be a substantial amount of development work, and it's not clear that we have enough expertise that's been entrained into the process yet to make that happen. And efforts are underway to attract funding required for moving this program forward in an accelerated manner. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rick. Okay, so the last speaker is Paul Di Giacomo, and he has two presentations, so I will not stand up in between, so he will do the two presentations together. So the first one is about Blue Planet, and the second one is about AquaWatch. You can stay here if you want, as you wish. Yeah?
Yeah.
And if you can just use this microphone, it's better.
Use this one.
Why it doesn't work? Everything is... Ah, this is this one, huh?
Yes.
Okay.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Vanessa. And thanks to Rick, Vanessa, and the GeoGLOWS team for being able to brief out one of the complementary activities to GeoGLOWS. So I'm going to be speaking about the Geo Blue Planet and efforts to support the SDGs. And just as a side, I'm running in and out because there's a meeting next door we're hosting for Blue Planet on small island developing states and the SDGs. And we're actually having a workshop in the Caribbean in January. So to speak about those interactions. So again, Paul DiGiacomo, I'm with NOAA Satellite Services, College Park, Maryland, so I'm a local. And I am the co-chair of the GEO's Blue Planet Steering Committee. And Blue Planet, similar as GeoGLOWS, is facilitating, coordinating the water activities under the auspices of GEO. Blue Planet's doing a similar thing for the coastal and ocean sides of GEO and related Earth observation activities. So a few details on GEO, Blue Planet. Full name is Oceans and Society, again, really with that focus on the societal benefits aspects of the Earth observations. That's what this is all about. Again, it's formally a GEO initiative. I think we got approved last year for that. You see our mission there to advance and exploit synergies among coastal and ocean observational programs, facilitating increased access and integration to in situ and remote data sets. And this is a key thing, breaking down some of those silos between the data providers, you know, on the in situ side, the remote side, and also getting to have them speak with one another. And then likewise, bringing together those data providers with the users, improving the engagement with them, for enhancing timeliness, quality range of services, and raising awareness of the societal benefits of ocean observations at public and policy levels. And this is a standard thing. I mean, there were different iterations of this shown yesterday, just in terms of the value-added chain. In and of themselves, Earth observations are useless, of course. And so what you need to do is to go for the value chain, generating data, derived products, information that creates knowledge for users, decision-making, policy-making basis. And so we're doing that in the context of ocean and coastal observations. This is just a little bit in terms of who we are. So it's a network, it's a community of practice across the globe, different international organizations, regional organizations, national institutes, universities, government agencies, private sector folks, and other stakeholders. This is just a distribution on the left of our steering committee, and again, we've tried to get good global distribution for the steering committee to facilitate our activities, and this is our advisory board. And for the advisory board, we have really brought in some high-level folks, practitioners, for example, the head of the IOC, Margaret Linen, who runs Scripps Institution of Oceanography. For CEOS, as I spoke about yesterday, one of the leads for CEOS, Committee for Earth Observation Satellites, and other folks to really help us advance the implementation of our activities. Current focus, I'm just going to go through some few details. Again, particularly engaging with the users, identifying what the data and information needs, consistent with what GeoGLOWS has been up to, clarifying, and sorry, I'm to blame for the seascape part instead of landscape. So the seascape of the ocean and coastal observations for the user groups. Along those lines, we've had our third Blue Planet Symposium, took place a couple months ago in College Park, Maryland, in our building. Had about 150 folks from 20, 25, 30 nations, I think. But you see some of the highlights there, and particularly one of them is really strongly work on that user engagement and the capacity building activities. There's a lot of other entities out there that are working on the data provision part. For example, GEOS, Global Ocean Observing System, CEOS, Committee for Earth Observation Satellites. Again, what we're really trying to do is link those data providers together, and then more importantly, link the data providers with the users. And so that's reflected there. And again, focus on these derived products and services, both where there's existing capabilities that can be used as kind of pathfinders and technology transfer and exported and transition to other places, but also to identify those areas where there's gaps in services and we don't have capabilities in support of users and particularly SDGs that we need to. And part of this, and this is similar for GeoGLOWS, is that there's a lot of good things going on right now on kind of individual, local, regional basis, and how do we foster those more broadly? We're doing a supplemental issue. We had about 50 abstracts submitted recently. Focus on some of those end-to-end cases of how ocean observations are used to benefit different sectors of society. As I mentioned, we're having a workshop implementing monitoring sustainable development goals in the Caribbean, the role of the ocean. This is actually being hosted by the Fisheries and Forestry Minister in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, so we're very excited about that. And again, we've been having some conversations about next door. That workshop in the Caribbean is also a pilot for other small island developing nations, not just in the Caribbean, but in the Pacific. There's a lot of interest there, more so perhaps focus on climate change impacts such as inundation and sea level rise, as well as impacts on ecosystems. We have other regional activities. We've been working with Barbados and UNDP and some of the Caribbean states on a pilot project for multi-purpose marine monitoring mechanism, and again, to demonstrate perhaps how you can actually do some of the successful implementation of the SDGs. So our website, Geo Blue Planet, lots of information, and you see just focusing on some of the societal applications and user benefits, so thank you. And while I'm waiting for Vanessa, we'll be having a fourth workshop next July in Toulouse in France associated with the European Science Conference. And we've partly been trying to move these around to different regions. First one was in Brazil, second one was in Australia, third one was in the United States, fourth one will be Europe. Have one in to really get the word out, the message. Okay, so now segueing, and this is perhaps for all of you a little bit more near and dear to your heart of the GEOGLOWS community, introducing the GEO AquaWatch initiative. This is for the GEO Global Water Quality Monitoring and Forecasting Service for Inland and Coastal Waters. So I'm the co-chair of the AquaWatch initiative. This was approved just a couple months ago as a GEO initiative, and particularly supporting SDG 6, as you might imagine, but also 14, and looking at things like harmful algal blooms, eutrophication, other issues near and dear to our heart. AquaWatch mission to improve coordination, delivery, utilization of water quality information for the benefit of society, and then in particular the goal to develop, build, and disseminate the capacity, utility, and application of those observations. Again, the data going down the value chains, the observations, the data and derived products towards information knowledge for users for integrated water quality management and decision making. AquaWatch, and not by the name of AquaWatch, but in terms of this activity in the context of GEO, has been going on for over 10 years. As many of you are probably aware, we had our first major international meeting. This was hosted in WMO in Geneva. There were about 200 folks, I think, at this meeting. GEO Inland Nearshore Water Quality Remote Sensing Workshop, followed up a few years later by one more focused on algorithms. But then these are more so, as you see, focused on remote sensing, but then we realized, and particularly in the context of GEO, and as GEO broadened really its remit beyond just focusing on satellite observations, but needing to bring in situ, as well as modeling and data assimilation efforts for derived products, to start focusing on the broader Earth observation suite, both in situ as well as satellites. So we had basically like a second water quality summit, 2015, also WMO in Geneva. And it was really out of that that explicitly the AquaWatch as a water quality service, global water quality service, was born for monitoring and forecasting coastal and inland waters. So addressing freshwater, addressing estuarine, and addressing marine waters. And then most recently, as I said, so approved as a GEO initiative in 2017. This slide always gets a lot of discussion, but to kind of give you a context, so I just spoke to you about Blue Planet on the ocean and coastal side. You've been hearing a lot about GEOGLOWS. AquaWatch really serves at the intersection between these two worlds. GEOGLOWS really on the land side and Blue Planet on the coast and ocean side. That water quality is fundamental and a vital concern to both of these communities on both the freshwater side and particularly the coastal estuarine and marine side represented by Blue Planet. And so that's why I think from this perspective is why AquaWatch is an independent initiative ultimately that we envision building out as a flagship service to develop water quality monitoring and forecasting for globally inland and coastal waters. And again, supporting these communities of users and likewise on the GEOGLOWS side. Okay, so as mentioned, it's been approved as an initiative by the GEO Program Board just a few months ago. Going to be working, continuing to access data and information, sharing of best practices, advocacy for routine and sustained water quality monitoring at global scale, coastal and inland waters. One thing we did, and really to build these case studies and to demonstrate to users what's possible, particularly users who aren't as familiar with Earth observations, is a nice high-level glossy book, you know, kind of eye candy, pretty pictures, not too dense text, good for managers like me, can actually digest it. But I think to really demonstrate some of the amazing things that are being out there in terms of the application of Earth observations for water quality, and there's different places around the globe. So I encourage you folks to check that out, geoaquawatch.org. There are printed copies if anyone's interested. I don't have them with me. We're still waiting them to get shipped over by Europe, but let me know. Current activities, and let me show this in a second. Here's kind of our work plan for over the next 10 years. We focus on the project initiation, developing an inventory of what's going on for global water quality, different projects, and we're trying to move beyond that project basis and develop a program, and then even more so a service. Here's where we are right now: development of baseline global water quality products, particularly for turbidity, and then local end-to-end regional demonstrations. So that's where we are right now, is we're focusing on extant data sets by different providers across the globe that are working on turbidity, particularly in NTU units, Secchi disk depth, diffuse attenuation coefficients, surface reflectance. So this is just focused on satellite products right now. But again, as a goal to that broader thing, and we've learned lessons in the past. As I said, we've been doing this for 10 years, is not try to do everything at once, but just build up gradually where resources have been investment, capabilities have been demonstrated, and products are out there. So that's really what we're focusing on. In the future, in the out years, continue to build out the service, you know, work with GEOGLOWS and Blue Planet, the U4 SDGs, GeoWetlands, et cetera, et cetera. Longer term, you know, on the 3 to 5 year, the demonstration, global water quality monitoring service, and then beyond that, expand that to forecasting, which is a little more complicated, and using the modeling and the data assimilation. So those are some of the out years. Just finish up some recent activities. There's a corresponding activity, the International Ocean Color Coordinating Group. We say ocean color, but it's really aquatic color data, and saying Earth observations in support of global water quality monitoring. Myself, Arnold Decker, Steve Greb, co-chairs for AquaWatch, are the editors of this. Will be coming out early next year. We have a session at the Ocean Sciences meeting, which is not just oceans, it's lakes and other applications. ASLO is one of the co-sponsors. Advancing Water Quality Monitoring, Forecasting Coastal Waters. That's in Portland in February. This highlights, this is a recent review we did in Progress Oceanography, about 25, 30-page paper. Uncertainties and applications of satellite-derived coastal water quality products, saying here's what you do, here's what's out there for different things like harmful algal blooms, eutrophication, pollutants, contaminants, etc. How you use, in this case, particularly ocean color, aquatic color data. That was just published. I encourage folks to check that out. We're also going to leverage a lot of the different data providers that are out there and coordinate. This is a program I oversee, NOAA Coast Watch, Ocean Watch. So it's a mechanism to distribute a lot of these existing products, be they ocean color, be they other types of satellite data, be they the in situ measures. And so to do this on an operational basis, which means routine and sustained, not just near real time, but also delayed mode products for climatologies and anomalies, trends, things like that. And finally, there's our website, and if folks have any questions, let me know. Thank you. So I'll be right back. I'm going to check what's going on. What are you guys doing a panel right now?
We will just have one or two questions. Maybe you could.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much, Paul. As I was saying to Paul, we will have 1 or 2 questions because we want to also have the second part of the meeting, which is a discussion on the IGW Community of Practice Action, and also a general discussion on the interaction among GEO Water Initiative and GeoGLOWS. So just 1 or 2 short questions in the room for the presentation we show today. Or maybe there is no question? Drought, cold region? No? Okay, so I give the floor to Rick, and we can start the second part.
Thank you. So A couple questions, and basically, rather than have the audience ask the questions, the audience, I'm hoping, will give the answers to the questions, and I'll ask the questions. First of all, we talked about the IGWCO, and it's clear that it's morphed as it's gone along, because it's been around when Professor Koike was young, and it's been around for what, 13 years, Toshio? 14 years? It's about 14 years, I think. So the question is, has its purpose been fulfilled? Because when we started, it was the IGOS partnership. It became part of GEO. It's now clear that there's new activities that are emerging, like GEOGLOWS. Maybe it could run another year, but maybe there's an opportunity here to think about how we might converge with GEOGLOWS, or maybe there's a role there that GEOGLOWS could take on in terms of coordination. But it would be interesting to hear people's perspectives. I think with the changes coming in the GEO Secretariat, we probably want to stay for another year to see how that works out. But beyond that, it's not clear to me, and I'd be interested in hearing, particularly from Drought and from GeoCry and from Diaz, which we heard from yesterday, and from other initiatives, AquaWatch, whether it's useful to have this function independent that tries to pull together all of the water activities and provide a bit of oversight for them, or whether we should kind of put it all under the GEOGLOWS umbrella or work towards that goal anyways. So, comments?
Yeah, I think there's a certain attraction actually to keeping IGWCO separate. And I mean, at least until we could see where GEO might be going, or the Secretariat might be going in terms of making recommendations for changes in the community of practice. It's you know, part of the problem is that we don't quite know where GEOGLOWS is going either. So I mean, it's just starting up, and you know, but that's I certainly would be in favor of wanting to have it remain in existence for another year. Okay. IGWCO.
Any other comments? Ian?
I think, taking from what we were talking about yesterday, I think there is an opportunity here with the development. So with GeoGLOWS, with GeoWetlands, with AquaWatch, with and the Freshwater Bond, and the various other initiatives that are focused on water within GEO. There's a great deal of opportunity to achieve kind of more than the sum of the component parts by bringing them together in a coordinated way. And so I think having some coordinated body for that would be important. And so, you know, maybe that's what the IGWCO kind of evolves into, is something that's reaching out more broadly.
Okay. So any more opinions there from others? Yes, Paul?
Just a quick comment that illustrated from the Blue Planet perspective. We had a lot of conversation at our second symposium several years ago about, and part of this is against a changing geo landscape, but basically we envision Blue Planet as an initiative, okay, and never to grow beyond an initiative, but which is an incubator, for example, flagships being services, so those routine and sustained things. So in that context, I mean, for me, an analog, and not pushing this view on GeoGLOWS, but is to envision GeoGLOWS as continuing to be an initiative and facilitating all these broader activities that we've heard in the community, and where there's particular individual standalone services that need to be promulgated for GeoGLOWS to help get those up and running. and then just pick them out one by one according to the priority. So there's different ways to do this, but just saying that's kind of where we've settled for now with GeoBlue Planet in terms of its role of facilitating and trying to help foster coordination and integration on the ocean and coastal side, for what that's worth.
Okay, that might be a model to look at. Probably take a bit of time to develop, but Toshio.
Okay. As Rick introduced in 2001, for preparation for the Rio Plus 10, the World Summit on Sustainable Development, which was held in Johannesburg, we made a plan for the global water observation, some strategy under the integrated global observations, the strategy IGOS. And in 2005, we established a GEO, and we identified that water is one of the key targets of the GEO. And IGWCO continued to lead the water group, and we developed a lot of the achievement. And the second phase of the GEO 10-year implementation plan, which started in 2015, we identified the initiative, as Paul mentioned. Initiative identified the leading group and also the management function, and the program we need to identify. This is really what I say, which we want during the past more than 15 years. And we have now such kind of the framework. One of the very, very important function is the secretariat or management leader. During the IGWCO era, we have a Rick Lawford. And then we had a very big achievement during the past 15 years. We need to keep this kind of the function in GeoGLOWS for activating the other actions. This is my point. Thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you. So, yeah, Angelica, do you have?
So, IGWCO is the core, the science, not precisely the implementation, but you provide the guidance, the vision, the long-term vision, and I think that that's important to keep. And I agree with Dr. Koike. Within GeoGLOWS, we should should be listening to those recommendations and become the implementation of those recommendations. But I am concerned to, I don't think that disappear in IGWCO would be a good idea. We need that science, that impartial body.
Okay, so I think we'll move on to another question here, but I think we probably should revisit this in a year's time and just see where things are in terms of program structure and so forth. Second question, and we'll probably try to keep this to 3 questions. We have AmeriGeos, and GeoGLOWS has very strong links with AmeriGeos. We have AfriGeos, and I'm not exactly sure as to what's happening in AfriGeos. Vanessa, maybe you could give us a little elaboration on that. And then we have AOGeos, Asia Oceanic Geos. And my question would be, how can GeoGLOWS really become effective in linking with those regional activities? I think in AmeriGeos, it's clear that there's a component of GeoGLOWS actually that owns its existence to the fact that AmeriGeos was there and active in the water area. But that's not necessarily the same in AfriGeos. Could be partly the same in AOGeos, but we have to build bridges to that community. So Vanessa, maybe you could talk just a minute about where AfriGeos sits, and then we could get people to respond to that.
Yeah, so Afrigeos, Andis Familza was the co-chair of Afrigeos. Now she left the secretariat. She returned back to South Africa, but she's still involved in Afrigeos, and there is a strong community involved in Afrigeos. So I don't know exactly the details, but Afrigeos is still very strong, and I think they are reorganizing the community after the departure of Andiswa. So if you want more information, I can always make a link to Andiswa, or you can always write to me. But like just giving you update right now, it's a bit difficult. For the water part, I know that there is also a community, but it's not. It's something we need to discuss to, as you said, how to make the link, because I know that there is this community, but it's not very well structured for now, I think. So there is some link to do, and maybe there is even something to build with Afrigeos about that. So maybe GEOGLOWS could also
so how can we engage? Selma, you had your...
Yes. I would like to make a comment regarding the GEOGLOWS link to GEOS, Africa GEOS or America's GEOS. GEOGLOWS is intending to gather and to coordinate all the initiative, hopefully, linking with the freshwater activities. Based on, of course, of the state of the art and on the vision and strategy for the 10 next years or 15 next years. What about the projects which are ongoing on Africa or on Americas, which are not stamped or linked to GEOS? Africa GEOS or America GEOS. There are many projects which are ongoing in Africa and Americas, which are not directly linked to GEOS. What is the process, or is it? Are we intending to link and make the start of the art of all the projects linked to this regional activity or not? Is it the objective of GEOGLOWS? This is a key questions in order to prepare the next program or structure program and link to other projects in capacity building and community of practice.
And do you have a recommendation to end that?
Yes, I have one, but I would like to see what are the comments and thought of the audience.
Okay. Other comments? Jim?
Yeah, well, I can say that the pilot that we did for GEOGLOWS, and you're welcome to come to the booth that opens up soon, covers Asia, Africa, and the Americas, and I think it's a good opportunity to have an initiative that can impact and help in all of those. And so I hope that, I mean, I know that the AmeriGeos is fairly well tied into it, but I'm not sure that the people associated with AOGEOS and AfriGeos are as familiar, but would invite you to come over and look and see how that can help.
Okay, good. And that's booth 220, just to enforce. Time for another comment on that? How we engage. Okay, third question I had came from discussions, not just yesterday, but yesterday was part of it, and it's too bad Paul has left. But when it comes to implementing things related to the essential water variables or implementing things related to water quality, where water quantity is involved, what is the best relationship between GEOGLOWS and, say, AquaWatch and other programs that have a water quality component to them? Be interested in hearing perspectives on that. What is the optimum relationship? Angelica? I thought maybe you'd have a viewpoint on this.
You know, when you are talking about water quality, there's so many things to do that there's plenty of space for all of us, plenty. So, and you know, as a hydrologist, I have to say that I will be biased in this perspective because I am a hydrologist who for 20 years did water quality in fresh bodies, in rivers and lakes, and I could never understand, I could never have understood water quality apart from water quantity. It's something that goes together. You cannot separate that from modeling perspective, from monitoring perspective. So, you know, one of the aspirations of GEOGLOWS is to be able to have at least some projects of water quality. You know, AquaWatch will also have its own projects and activities, but as I said at the beginning, there is plenty of issues, and there is the space is so big that, you know, AquaWatch is, GEOGLOWS cannot do everything alone, so we will need AquaWatch in some cases, but there will be others when we will want to keep the water quality also in GEOGLOWS. And as I said, my perspective may be very biased because of my background in water quality.
Mm-hmm. George, you have a comment because you've been dealing with the essential water variables.
Yeah, I'm the guy on the hot seat. I think, why do you have essential water variables? You have them because we want all the agencies to know what is really, really important about to be observed. And so for the life of IGWCO, the water cycle people have been developing this concept on the quantity side. And so, like I said, except for the thing we can't measure, which is the horizontal fluxes, we have pointed out that these things have to be measured in order to get the whole water cycle. And so, for example, lake levels, at the beginning, when those got written down, those were not observable from space. They were little in situ, and so we encourage the in situ people. But for the most part, it provided an impetus for the space people to go, wow, we need those really fine footprints so we can actually get down and look at the river levels at a vertical resolution, which allows you to start knowing about the river level, independent of or in addition to the in situ. So on the water quality side, I sort of see the same kind of issue, that on the one hand, there are certainly things that can be observed from space. There are things that, you know, there's in situ. The in situ is hard to do and it tends to be very fragmented. But by pointing out that these are the really critical things, then we've pushed the agencies to give us the resources to do that data that we maybe can't do now. And so the live question institutionally is, how do we best do that? Is it one integrated list of integrated, you know, essential water variables? Does everyone keep their own list? There's some advantage to having an integrated list because then the agency sees the whole range at once. But it's clear that the experts in each of the fields are the ones that determine what goes on the list. It's not up to me to say what the water quality is. I watch the conversation and go, wow, never thought of that, as a water quality guy, a quantity guy. So I think I see this as an institutional question that the experts develop the list, and I think there's a case to be made that list should be all in one place as opposed to spread. And we start to see this with the climate variables, right? The essential climate variables. There's a big discussion about, oh, you know, if it's not on the essential climate variable list, it doesn't exist. Well, sorry, folks, it does. To get the whole water cycle, you need the essential water variables as we defined them a couple of years ago. And so it might be that the agencies get amnesia when they go from one list to another, and one agency likes the climate list, and one agency likes the water list, and one likes the quality list, and so they're all in one place. Maybe we avoid that problem.
Okay. So that also provides maybe a bit of insight about how we separate between ECVs and EWVs, or if we do separate. Yeah. Yes, please go ahead.
Nima Palavan, NASA Goddard Space Flight Center. So you know, learning from water quantity guys, I think one of the things that caused water quality to lag behind is essentially the capability, like the satellite capability. It was not there until a couple of years ago. And the ocean color community, which I'm part of, was not focusing on inland and fresh water. After this past 4 or 5 years and new missions coming up, we have the satellite capability to do water quality in inland and near-shore coastal areas. The other thing is the scientists, the science community is just trying to try to be very precise on what they provide to the end users. And that's also something that we need to work on and to sort of relax the requirements for providing products to end user community. The other thing is, to me, that's really missing is the modeling, water quality modeling community. As a remote sensing guy, I do not know anybody doing water quality modeling. And in order to be able to go forward and to do forecasting, we need institute data, satellite data, as well as water quality modeling capability. So there are several pieces missing that sort of causing the water quality to lag behind water quantity community, but they all should be working together. And as I'm telling you, we do have the capability now. We just need to work on how to get the word out to end users in a more simple manner. We know how to do stuff, but end users have no idea if anything is available. So that's something we need to build on with end users.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yes, I agree with this last comment. I think there is a new era for the inland water quality. Mm-hmm. I don't think that we have to relax from now the specification or the requirement. I think there is a clear also a need for research and development activity dealing with inland water quality. I think as the GEO community, I understand the comment from Angelica, but as a GEO community, we need to avoid the overlapping activity in order to mutualize effort and optimize them. We need to set up a kind of requirement. What are the input data needed to conduct these water quality activities for inland water? And from that point, I think we will have a clear picture what are the perimeter of the AquaWatch and what is the perimeter of the GEOGLOWS. And as Angelica said, there is, I think, a space for everybody to work. There is, I think we are at the beginning of the story for the inland water and its related quality. Even there is a very strong background on the ocean community. From my perspective and what I'm looking on French side within this activity, there is still a huge work to do related with the science.
Okay, there were 2 more questions, and I think we're going to have to close this because we are supposed to. 3 more. Okay, supposed to head over to the exhibits. Yes.
Thanks, Rick. Mine was just more of a comment related to the ECVs, because the ECVs have been around for a decade or more, and they have a very strong community behind them. Looking at the essential water variables, I'm sorry, but I can't find them. If we were to have them established and available to the community, it would be a lot easier for space agencies to address and figure out where we need to support.
Okay. I have to give you a copy of the GEOS Water Strategy Report.
Oh, I have that report.
Okay, there's a table.
But the water variables, I mean, if they're established from the water community, whereas the essential climate variables are GCOS, they're endorsed, they have their own.
That's what you meant by
that's
where
exactly
are they?
What I meant.
Okay.
That's exactly what I meant.
Okay. Good point.
So just a comment around essential variables. So I'm with GeoBlend, so we're working on the essential biodiversity variables. And it appears to me that, we've taken a good idea from the climate community around establishing a minimum set of variables to understand a system. And it's spreading. So we've got essential ocean variables, water variables, biodiversity variables. And you can take those and combine them in different things to actually answer a question or produce a model, such as things like water quality, which is very interdisciplinary. So the key here, in my mind, is when we're sort of looking outwards and communicating to CEOS and our requirements, We just have to be careful that we don't create this massive confusion. So I think there's a role within the GEO Secretariat, at least in my mind, would be very helpful just to set some consistent ground rules around how we're developing these suites of variables. So they're all distinct but coherent, and they can be combined. Otherwise, people get confused if we start to select variables that are redundant, perhaps, across communities. What we have to do is keep them distinct, but then allow and make it very clear that we're trying to integrate and apply different variables to answer different questions, such as around the SDGs, which are very interdisciplinary. So that's what I'd like to see, is just a little bit of more coordination, as we're doing with the EBVs and the essential ocean variables. I think that's fairly well coordinated, but I could see lots of potential problems here if we don't sort of all step together in the same way.
Good point. Jose was his plane was canceled yesterday, and he didn't get a chance to comment on EWVs. So we would like to hear your comments.
No, sorry, no. Just to agree with much of what has been said, and as you said, we had a plane canceled yesterday. So I think that just a very local or national comment. You know, we are, I dare to say, a highly developed country, and in the Federal Office for the Environment, where I come from, we have two distinct divisions for water. One for the hydrometry, and this is the idea, and the other one for water quality. What I mean with the water quality separation from hydrometry is that it has a lot to do with policy making. We are facing, for example, the continuous dialogue, if not fight, with agriculture for nitrogen issues, etc. Also, the quantity in Switzerland has only 4% of water for irrigation, but there too we have now, with drier periods in summertime, more demand for water use and so on. So my point is that we have to consider a number of interfaces with policy making, which are very important, because at the end, water quality is very much dependent, I dare to say, of a lot of policy making in contiguous domains like agriculture and so on, and financial, availability of financial means and so on. So I think there is work for everybody, for all communities, to come in the essential water variables. We can clearly indicate what is the task of each one, and take into account this policy dimension, which is there, in particular for water quality, and in countries where there is a lot of irrigation, for water quantity, and have a real set available for everybody, and encompassing all the needs. Well, I try to be very positive, because the problems we face are more or less the same in all countries with diverse situations. Thank you.
Okay. Should mention Jose is from Switzerland.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So I think we probably have to go. There's probably another group coming in here, and the exhibit is open at this coffee break. So thank you very much for your participation, stimulating discussion. Very good. Thank you.